this new year unfolds, it's pivotal. I say pivotal for as employer branding professionals to chart the course to navigate our organization successfully through the new year of employer branding. This first quarter is not just about setting goals, it's about laying the strategic foundations that will define your employer brand throughout the year if you have not done that yet. It's about making sure that you know the expected goals for this year, because that will help you organize your available resources in the most optimal way. It's also about looking back to that previous year. If you were taking employer branding actions last year, evaluate what worked and what didn't work, and make sure that your resources are not spent on actions and activities that did not return the expected value for the organization. Because you want to optimize your new year of employer branding to make sure that whatever you're doing on employer branding is helping to impact, and that impact will grow, as will your strategic employer branding skills. Now, this episode of Building the Modern Employer Brand podcast is designed to help you, the dedicated employer branding professional, to get organized and ready for another successful year in employer branding. And if you are new to this podcast, my friend, welcome here. My name is Susanna Rantanen, and I'm here to guide you to make the most of your employer branding and recruitment marketing career so that you can experience professional joy, achievement, and success. And this podcast is exactly what you want to integrate into your weekly routine if you're working employer branding or talent acquisition or talent marketing. And as one of the top employer branding experts and influencers, I'm your guide. I want to be your guide and your mentor in modern employer branding. And I want to give you practical and logical, but science-based tips to help you convince and convert your relevant talent audiences. I like to talk about strategies and tactics and data and copywriting secrets and content creation, analytics, obviously, social media changes, and my professional pride and joy, the magnetic employer branding method that this entire podcast is based on. And if you don't know yet, I'm writing a book about that, and it's going to be out this autumn. Now stick with me and you'll learn how to win sustainable attention in a world where attention is no longer a default. So let's get on with this week's episode, shall we? So how we want to start this year is with strategic planning and goal setting for employer branding, if you have not done that yet. I suggest and recommend wholeheartedly that you begin with reflecting on the past year's employer branding journey if you were employer branding last year. Always start a new season with a clear picture of what worked and what didn't work the previous year. And this is important because you want to make sure that you have a plan to overcome any of those struggles that you experienced last year, but also that you actually keep doing what really worked last year. Because there's no reason to fix something that ain't broken, right? So, and that's, I think, especially vital in a long-term activity like employer branding. Another really important element of evaluating the previous year is celebrating your achievements and learning from the challenges. What made you uneasy with employer branding last year? And here I'm talking about yourself. Did you discover any weaknesses or any areas of growth and development, any skills that you don't have that you feel that now you have to start developing? Jot down a list for yourself. I mean, that's what I do every year, because when you do branding with marketing and communications and you use content and social media, especially social media, it keeps changing all the time. And it requires us to kind of adapt to these new needs in terms of the skills and capabilities that we have. And, that includes and involves learning new skills and learning learning to overcome your weaknesses, I was just actually editing a short video in which I talk about learning and how I keep myself up to date on what's going on and sort of the top notch in my profession. And in that video, I talk about how I used to hate doing videos because it made me very uneasy to perform in front of the camera. And I didn't know how to edit videos or anything like that. But I just decided that I'm going to start doing it because videos work so much better on social media. And today, after like a year or 2 years even, I'm doing videos as much as I can. And, I'm not saying that I'm the best video maker or the best video editor even yet. And I've got lots to learn, but I no longer fear this activity of creating videos. Now it's just for me to become tactically better with what I do. So my question for you is there a way to invest some of your time and budget into, for example, improving any skills that you don't have yet so that you don't have to experience the same struggles or challenges that you did last year? Now, I want you to envision what success looks like for your employer brand over the next 12 months. Well, I mean, we're mid-February now, so let's say over the next 10 and a half months. Ensure that whatever means success to you in employer branding by the end of the year, that those goals align with your organization's business goals for this year as well. Because after all, for you to get sufficient resources for employer branding also next year, it requires you to to be honest, it requires you to prove that whatever you're doing with employer brand is actually supporting the business management in reaching their goals. Because if you don't have sufficient resources next year for growing your employer branding impact and growing your impact as an employer branding professional, you will lose out on this joy of witnessing progress, being able to follow just how employer branding impacts talent attraction and talent retention related goals, and being able to enjoy the authentic feedback from management, realizing that there's actually something worthwhile in employer branding, not just for you or for HR, but for the management to help them make decisions about the business. So if you don't have sufficient funds to do that, to help them, then you're losing your case. And if they've been investing in employer branding for a year, another year, a third year, and still they don't see any real impact, your employer branding budget is not going to increase. It's not likely to even stay the same. It's going to decrease, and you don't want that. So I've said this a zillion times, what you need is a strategic plan. And there is no need for you to be scared of the word strategy, because strategy is literally just an outline of focus areas and key decisions that are made together with your key stakeholders so that all of you know exactly what you're meant to focus on and do during this new season of employer branding. The wonderful thing about an employer branding strategy is that when it's done well, it serves your purpose throughout multiple seasons, guiding you to make seasonal employer branding plans based on it. And this season, you will set your focus on such and such. And the next season, your focus is on this and that. And then the third season, the focus will be on such and such. All coming from the strategy, but split into more manageable chunks. And if you like, giving you a plan on how to get from A to B this season, then from B to C the following season, and finally from C to D the year after that. This is how management works as well. And when you can show them a plan that is recognizable for them, matching how their minds work, it's easier for them to see why you need the budget, what the budget will be used for. And when your plan for the new season is updated, you go to the person who decides on the investments to get the budget for your plan. Next, with a fresh budget at your disposal, it's crucial for you to prioritize initiatives that will deliver the most impact. This means allocating resources financially and regarding your team's time and expertise. Do you have all the skills and the expertise that you need in-house, or do you need to allocate some of your budget for acquiring those skills and expertise from outside? Invest in tools and platforms that elevate your employer branding efforts, make your work more efficient, and help you get either more done with the same time investment or save up some of your time that you need elsewhere this season. Some examples of platforms to invest in are tools such as social media analytics, for which I recommend a app or a tool called Metricool. As this is a social media app that automatically reads the analytics from or the data from all of your social media sources and gives you really nice graphs for you to stay on top of the progress of the behavior. Then a social media marketing app to schedule and share your content at the best times for your target audience. We have used Buffer for this for over a decade. There's plenty of others, but I like Buffer because it's very simple, it's very cost effective. If you want to get more from your employees and more employee advocacy content, come back for another episode next week because I have a guest from a company called Martech. This is a company that offers AI-powered employee content generation tools. And I'm going to be interviewing this guest later today. So I look forward to hearing his thoughts on employee generated content. And the key here is, however, to be effective with budgeting early on, because this will ensure you that you have the means to execute your plans for this season without constraints. That's why I advise you to schedule time from next November or even October, let's say November, so that you can start building your case for budgeting early enough for the coming year. Now, what about employer brand marketing plans for talent acquisition and retention? Does it look like your employer branding activities should support your organization more internally or externally this year? Do you know? Does your organization have any plans that will require you to shift your employer branding focus this year to something specific that will help the business? This is something for you to find out. The more you can show that employer branding is literally supporting the business with challenging areas in relation to talent retention and talent attraction, the more seriously the top management will regard employer branding. Now, the new year often signals a flurry of hiring activity. But if your organization is going through a change accelerated by growth or a change in the business strategy, merger and acquisition, layoffs, or iterating your company culture, your employer branding should actually focus on talent retention. And based on your available resources, you need to decide who needs your employer branding support more. Is it talent acquisition or your people and their nearest managers? Now, if the answer is talent acquisition, consider what your budget allows you to do and what your key concerns are in the talent market. Does your organization lack general employer brand awareness and recognition, or are your weaknesses only in specific talent segments requiring more employer brand awareness this season? But I want you to be careful that your employer branding does not turn into recruitment campaigns, because then you are spending your employer branding budget on activities that are not generating expected long-term value, and you will really have difficulties proving your case for the management for the next year's budget. And by the way, in most organizations, recruitment marketing budgets come from the hiring manager's budgets when employer branding budget is separate and for the whole organization. So you don't want to use your employer branding budget on individual hiring managers and their specific individual needs, because then it's away from the other managers and the whole organization. So if your a hiring manager's need recruitment campaign is going to have to come from their budget. Okay. Have you heard of our Instant Employer Brand Accelerator method? This method is designed for in-house talent acquisition professionals to help them develop a systematic recruitment marketing strategy for talent acquisition. This marketing method is ideal for organizations with medium to high levels of annual talent acquisition, where strategic employer branding is either not an option or too far away from local talent acquisition to help you truly. For more information, check out the show notes article for this episode that you can find on modernemployerbrand.com/podcast, followed by the number of this episode. Now, regardless of your focus this season, active communication on social media reaches your target audiences internally and externally. Did you know that oftentimes your people learn more about what's going on in your organization from social media than from internal communication channels? If this is the case in your organization, leverage channels your people are active on and let them know so that they follow your content on social media. The difference between employer branding your organization and attracting job seekers towards a specific role and business division in your organization can feel like a thin line in sand, but it's not. Any content you create to aid the recruitment process for a specific role during that campaign should be time sensitive and relevant to the current situation. Get a budget for this from the hiring manager or the business unit. Don't spend your employer branding budget on marketing needs that only serve very limited people and for a very limited time frame. Unless it's the Instant Employer Brand Accelerator method, because that is designed to help the business beyond one role and one time. Then your employer branding content. It must be evergreen in nature so that it serves its purpose at least for the next couple of years. This is the best use of your employer branding budget. Are you auditing your employer brand and talent market positioning? For some odd reason, employer branding people ignore the talent market and the competition when it comes to making employer branding plans. Auditing the state of your employer brand and your position as an employer, either in your own industry, your talent niche, or your local talent market is pretty darn important. Avoid working with your eyes blindfolded at all costs. Reserve time aside annually to conduct a thorough employer brand audit. With thorough, I mean thorough in your availability. Understand your current market position and that of your key competitors for the same talent is really, really eye-opening. Be careful, though, not to confuse the competition for your company's products and services as your key competitors for the same talent, because while sometimes there are overlaps, but oftentimes these are not the same. So until you study and confirm who your key competition is, do not make assumptions that can actually be hurtful for your employer branding plans. Auditing your talent market for your employer brand strategy involves gathering insights into how employees and potential candidates perceive your brand internally and externally. And I think that the easiest way is to ask your employees in different professional groups to make a list of what they think are the top 5 most interesting employers to watch right now. Then identify your key competitors in the order of importance based on how many so-called votes your people gave them. After that, evaluate how they present themselves online, their career sites, assess the visual and the written key messages, because those can tell you a lot, and make notes so that you're not forgetting anything. Assess also recruitment pages and key recruitment messages. How do they describe themselves? What kind of terminology do they use? Do they have any sort of taglines or slogans that they keep repeating? Can they actually prove the aim of those taglines and slogans? Does their other content make it look like that there's evidence behind those slogans, or are they just catchy slogans without any further point. Also, look at their social media presence, activity, the regularity of activity, number of followers, reach, and things like that. You want to identify gaps and opportunities in your brand perception because that allows you to craft more targeted, more effective messaging and position for your employer brand as a clearly different kind of option than what your key competitors are. And in those countries, which I believe are many, where you have access to the Universum's annual, the most preferred employers list, and studies, I can really strongly recommend that from my heart. Their insight is really high quality, very expansive, and top notch, especially when you subscribe to it. Now, then we're going to talk about content strategy. Now, let me tell you, content is the lifeblood of employer branding because a good employer brand content strategy will give you what you need to remind your audiences about your existence regularly. And a well thought out content strategy like what our magnetic employer branding method provides you is a really valuable asset and very much worth investing in. Not only does it give you a plan for the entire year based on your focus areas, but it also helps your content and posts stay within your plan. Keep repeating those strategic employer brand key messages that are incremental in building an employer brand that sets you apart from your competition. A solid employer brand content plan is literally the only way that you can help avoid making those probable mistakes in employer brand marketing, such as have big breaks between posting because you don't know what to post, you don't have time to ideate, or then you end up posting all sorts of random content that makes absolutely no sense to your target audience and doesn't invite them on this employer branding journey with you. And that doesn't help you to grow your employer brand awareness. You need to have a plan for building this clear understanding of why your target audience needs to consider you as a preferred place to work. And without such a plan, I don't see how you will succeed in employer branding. I've tried going without a content plan for some time, and I spent a lot of time wondering and baffling and trying to get some content up, and that content didn't have any impact whatsoever. So it was a total failure. I spent a lot of time anyhow. And I do this for a living. So I can tell from my experience that everyone needs a plan to stick with for systematic employer branding, creating those routines that creates that employer brand. And without it, you may be posting a lot, but you won't have the consistency of the message and you are unlikely to post often enough for it to matter in the big picture. Now, you want to plan your content calendar that highlights your company culture and values, showcases real employee stories and experiences with that why as your key message. This approach helps you humanize your employer brand and make it more relatable to your existing and future employees. I want to drop this out as a reminder. The magnetic employer branding method is designed to provide this for you. So contact me if you want to have it, if you want to start building your modern employer brand with this method. If you have any questions and wonder if this might fit your needs and budget, low barrier, just give me a shout. Let's talk or message. Okay, question. What about AI in employer branding? I spoke about AI very recently. This was in episode 167, and I have also blogged about it. Now, if you go to modernemployerbrand.com/podcast 167, you'll find the links and my thoughts there. AI in employer branding and content creation. Now, this is an interesting topic and an option. I use AI a lot, but mostly for content ideation and drafting, because it has this certain flavor that can be recognized. And I came across a study, which I will talk about on that recent AI episode number 167, that literally kind of proved my feelings. The audience does not trust AI-generated content unless you edit it. Therefore, my advice at this time is absolutely make the most of AI for ideation, for research, but be very wary of not publishing AI-generated content, at least not without editing it first. Otherwise, your employer brand sounds like an artificial intelligence tool, and the same as your competitors also using AI. Now, if you publish AI content in your employer branding, you are actually not following the employer branding basics of being authentic and building trust. Now, I've heard, though, that there are new emerging tech, for example, for providing virtual reality workplace tours, which I find really fascinating and a great possibility for employer branding. I don't have any examples to share with you yet. If you do, let me know, because I want to do some research on those. Otherwise, when I find out, I'll share. Okay. Then we want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, DEI should be more than just a buzzword in your employer branding strategy and content. And the start of the year is always an ideal time to set the ambitious, because they need to be ambitious, DEI objectives, plan meaningful initiatives, and communicate your company's commitment to fostering an inclusive workplace. A stronger focus on DEI, I think that will enrich your organizational culture, but also appeal to a much broader range of job seekers. And this can't do anything but benefit your business. Now, I recently spoke about inclusiveness in employer branding at this European She is Tech event, and you can actually watch my speech on my YouTube channel. The handle is my usual social media handle at Rantanen Susanna. And if you cannot find this speech, again, the direct link is on the show notes article for this episode at modernemployerbrand.com/podcast 173. Not long ago, I also had my former client turned friend as a guest on this podcast to talk about DEI. Now, she was the first full-time DEI manager appointed in Finland. So this episode is number 169. And I have to say that as a white, middle-class female, she gives really great insight and a very good inspiration for all of us about learning and working in DEI from this perspective. It can be very difficult to relate to minority challenges in the work life if you are not representing any of the minority. Obviously, she represents being a woman in business, but other than that. And even for us here in the Nordic countries, we are more fortunate in this area also as women than most other women in the world, except maybe New Zealand. So strong recommendation to listening to that episode 169. It's a long episode, so you might want to go for a walk to listen to it. Okay, my beloved listener, as we have now stepped into this new season, the landscape of employer branding continues to offer us both challenges and opportunities. I'm sure of that. We haven't really been short of those in the past years either. When you focus on these key areas at the start of a new season like this one, you can ensure that your employer branding plans for this coming season continue or become more robust, more responsive, and resonant with the values of today's workforce, because those values have changed as well. Because you have to remember that the work you do now, it lays the groundwork for a year of success, growth, innovation in attracting and retaining the best talent for your organization. Can I ask you a favor? As you know, I am writing a book on the magnetic employer branding method, which is what this entire podcast is based on. My book is planned to be out after summer. I don't have a date yet, but that's the plan. And I have this hugely ambitious goal that I'm almost humiliated to share with you, because I have to admit that it's based on rather egotistical need and is in quite contrast with my mostly humble nature. I want to make the New York Times bestsellers list. Yesterday, I asked my friend Susie, who has made the list, I think, several times, maybe 3 times, what is the secret? And she told me that there's no formula, but she said this. First of all, the book has to have really great content. Well, that one, I will promise you. This one will. Then you have to have tons of followers beforehand. And this is where I need your help. Because as someone from this end of the earth, Finland, we're only about 5.5 million inhabitants in the entire country. And not everyone is into employer branding, which I know is kind of weird, isn't it? So my current following is, I would say, equal to the size of the country and the niche, my professional niche of employer branding. So it's small. I need more internal followers who are into employer branding, as this is what I post about, what I share about. This is what I like to educate about and inspire about. So if you can follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, at least Instagram and LinkedIn, and then if possible, YouTube and TikTok, and help me grow more awareness of this podcast to your peers and your networks by commenting any content from this podcast, from episodes on this podcast on social media, sharing episodes that you like, recommending this podcast. I would be so grateful to you. I'm asking to share this podcast because this way I can provide the new followers with instant value added. So I think that would be a really worthy exchange. Now, you can find me at Rantanen Susanna everywhere else except on LinkedIn, where I go by Susanna Rantanen. I'll put the links on the show notes. And third, what Susie told me was like, some unexpected lucky break is required, like Oprah endorses the book. Well, Oprah, are you there? Are you listening to my podcast? I doubt that she is. So we need some other kind of lucky break. My friend, I need you now more than ever. Please, can you help me out and make this our mutual shared goal? When we get there, I promise I will have some kind of a special virtual celebration and invite you in it for sure. Now, share this podcast, your favorite episodes, talk about this podcast, recommend people to follow me and take up on this podcast. Subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with a friend or a colleague. Make sure you follow me online and recommend my podcast to your colleagues and friends too. But most importantly, you come back next week for another episode on building the modern employer brand. It has been a pleasure. Moi moi.